Takkar is a year-long test series program with 146 tests. This program is specially designed for UPSC, CSC, prelims and mains exam. It has 4 phases. Phase 1, pre-cum-mains test. In phase 2, we conduct tests exclusively for the prelims exam. And in phase 3, we will conduct tests for mains exam. And in phase 4, we will help you to prepare for interview through interview guidance program. So why to wait? You can enroll for it now.
Welcome everyone. So today my plan is to discuss the issue of poverty alleviation holistically. The purpose of this lecture is, let's say some aspirants say that I have already scored let's say 100 or 105 marks in 100 to 105 marks in GS3. And they want to take their score to 115 or something. So I believe this lecture will help them. For beginners, they can watch our, for beginners it might be a little difficult, but yes, I want to assure, I will share some, not facts, some ideas. If you put those ideas in a mains copy, that will help you score at least 10 marks more. So see, only this question will not help you score, but if you put these kind of ideas, then you can easily increase your score by 10-15 marks. So what we will do, we will discuss Multidimensional Poverty Index 2022 report. Now, let's say if you want to read poverty, it's not necessary that you have to read this report. No. The more important thing is you have to have your notes ready on poverty, at least 3-4 page concise notes, which you can read. You can do by reading NCERTs, or let's say even 12 5-year plan reports. Do not think they are old, right? You can find the data from NCERTs, even from secondary RC reports, and even this report will also do. The more important fact is how to extract that information, that idea, and put in your notes copy. So let us start the Multidimensional Poverty Index. What it says, first let me show you report, right? So this is the report, okay? It's hardly 40-45 pages. There are many diagrams, but there are many wonderful ideas in this report, which if you will put in your not only GS3 mains and GS3 and GS2, but also you can write an essay using it. So this report, and every year, UNDP and Oxford Human Development Initiative will publish this report, right? So what is multidimensional poverty? The simple definition is it is not limited to monetary poverty. Monetary means it does not include only monetary aspects. The technical definition is it includes 10 total. It is measured on 3 parameters. One is health, second is education, and third is standard of living. You may see this diagram. And within this, let's say health. Health they have categorized into nutrition and child mortality, right? And education they have categorized into year of schooling of school attendance. See, school attendance is not sufficient. Year of schooling, and even our national education policy has gone one step forward. They say not only year of schooling and attendance, but the quality of education. They talk about 3 hours. So this is, and standard of living is these 6 parameters: cooking, fuel, sanitation, assets, housing, like that. And what it says, the weight given is 1/3 to each. Okay. So now you can see the child mortality will get how much weight? 1/6. Similarly, let's say electricity will get how much? 1/18 weight. And what UNDP has done, it measured the poverty in 111 countries. 111 countries. And you have to be in God. This data is before, pre-pandemic data. And what they found out that almost 1.2 billion people, 1.2 billion people are living in multi-dimensional poverty index. Okay, MPI, MPI. And when you classify a person as an MPI, whenever the weighted score, let's say, they are doing surveys, and they found the weighted score on this MPI is more than 1.3. So they will classify that person as a, poor as per the MPI. Fine. Now, the point is where, okay, this is all information, this is fact, this report. Now the point is what is the idea which you can use in your essays or, your GS3 or GS2 mains copies. First, you can discuss about the idea of MPI. You can say measuring just monetary poverty not sufficient. India has done, the long journey. Vaikala committee, then many Tendulkar committee, Rangarajan committee came. So they were mainly focused on they were also focused on, we will not say only income, but they also included, let's say, nutrition, health, standard of living. So this captures the poverty holistically. MPI captures the poverty holistically. And one more thing, let me show you here. Just a minute. This is twice of monetary poverty. So you can approximate, around 600 million people are living in monetary poverty in the world. But MPI is 1.2 billion. Now this is one thing. Now you have understood the data. Now let's say suppose you are writing an essay and you want to give your views that how India or let's say South Asia, they can tackle poverty. Then will come the poverty, triplets. This report talks about the triplets. What it says, what I will do, I will share this one. Just a minute. Where is that report? Okay. Yes. This is the, I went through, this report and I am trying to, I highlighted a few important points which you might use in your notes. What it says, let us say the first thing. Okay. So, this multidimensional poverty index, it was, it is calculated using household surveys. So, generally, World Bank data, how World Bank measures poverty, it uses household surveys. There are two methods. One is the National Accounting Systems, NAS, and another is household surveys, right? Household surveys. So, World Bank data is based on household surveys. So, they did surveys in 111 countries, and which covered 6.1 billion people, and it says 1.2 billion people are still living in poverty. Fine. Then they talk about India. See, India has, you can mention this point somewhere in your essay as well. In last 15 years, India has taken out, almost 415 million people out of the abject poverty, right? Okay, but see, again, let's say this is a cause of celebration that so many people have, been out of extreme poverty. But, and this is important, but almost 10 crore million, 9.7 million people, Indian children are still living in in poverty. And this is the highest in the world. So, you have to understand the gravity of this data or this idea. Worldwide, let's say total poor people in India. Out of them, 50% are children. Always, remember this data. Total poor people in India, out of them 50% are children. And they make how many people, how much? 9.7 million people, and 97 million people. And this is more than anywhere in the world. So in not even in China or any other country, you will find so many children in poverty. Okay, so this is a big. So now you understand. See, you remember Dr. Kailash Satyarthi got Nobel Prize for, that was a Peace Nobel Prize. But now you can understand the work he has done. He has, taken out many children out of this abject poverty. So this is a very, very important issue. So I suggest somewhere you must mention this point in your essay copies. Okay. Now let's talk about the poverty profile. Okay. Before we move that, you must also understand. Let's say SDG 1 is there, right? What the SDG 1? No poverty. What it's talk about? We have to, reducing by at least half the proportion of man. See, this is important word. Not reducing poverty just by half, but the proportion of both man women and children as well. Let's say somebody says, I've reduced the poverty, India has reduced the poverty by half. Well, till 2030. No. That is not the complete goal. You have to reduce the poverty even among women and children and men. And that is going to be difficult because you saw the data. Because you saw 97 million children are still living in poverty in India. So this is going to be difficult, but yes, more or less India is going to achieve this. Fine. Now, when you talk about the Indian case, so in India what is happening? Nutrition, nutrition is a big problem. When you see the, when you see deprivation profile of India, you will find that nutrition is a big problem. I will show you where it is given. So when you write such a specific thing in your mains copy, because see, these professors have, they have been reading such reports, and they can differentiate between the relevant and irrelevant thing. So when you, okay, let's say you write this thing. This point you can write there in mains copy. You can say nutrition, cooking fuel, sanitation and housing. Okay, these are the 4 important things. Let's say, and this is the major cause of poverty. If you provide nutrition, cooking fuel, sanitation and housing to Indians, so you have to focus more on this rather than focusing on electricity. Electricity is not a major cause, although Indians need electricity is a major cause of poverty in sub-Saharan area. But in India, what you have to focus on: nutrition, cooking fuel, sanitation and housing. Right? And let's say if you have to focus on only on 3 things, then nutrition, cooking fuel and sanitation. Sanitation is also very, very important for sub-Saharan region. Now, see, what is my point? You will not remember, you will not remember these numbers, how many people are living below poverty and what is, but this idea will remain in your mind that, let's say you have to form a policy, you have to give recommendation in a mains copy. You will say, when we design a policy for poverty alleviation, we should look for the deprivation profile. For instance, in the Indian case, policy makers have to focus on nutrition, cooking fuel, sanitation and housing, while in the case of, let's say, sub-Saharan Africa, more focus has to be on sanitation and clean water. Okay, this statement, will fetch you more marks, right? Okay, here they talk about this deprivation bundles. What they say, deprivation bundles are pairs or triplets, a larger group of interlinked deprivation that make up or subset of a deprivation. See, what is the meaning of interlinked deprivation? Let's say, as we mentioned, in sub-Saharan Africa, sanitation is a big problem, right? Water deficiency is a big problem. And that's why many of you must have heard about WASH program of World Bank. In fact, there was a PYQ as well. In 2016 or 17, you see, on WASH. WASH is related to water, sanitation and hygiene. Okay, this is a program run by World Bank. So, let's say you want to improve sanitation. And if you invest in sanitation, to automatically clean, drinking water and clean water, that will also be, fulfilled. So these are interlinked. That's what they are saying, interlinked deprivation. Let's say you want to improve education. Okay, if you build the schools, then automatically not only schools but good quality teachers as well. Then the education profile of the children will also improve. Fine. So this thought you must put somewhere in a mains copy in an essay. Because they do not look for data, they look for your thoughts, your ideas. So if you tell them, okay, I understand that there is something called interlinked deprivation, and if you give the example of sanitation and clean water, then the professor will understand, the examiner will understand, and I'm sure you will fetch extra marks. Okay, now see this statement. Integrated multi-sectoral policies cannot only lift millions out of poverty, but also minimize poor people's burden by enabling them to overcome multiple deprivation at the same time. See, it is all about synergy. Let's say you design policy in isolation. Let's say this is the drinking water facility. Here India needs, let's say, $1 billion. Here, let's say, sanitation. Okay, sanitation. And India here need $800 million. Right, $800 million. And here let's say housing here India need let's say $5 billion. If the policy is working in silos, then can you see $6.8 million. But if you have interlinked the policy making, and not only policy making but the implementation of the program, might be this work can be done only for let's say $6 billion. That might happen. So that is the point. Okay, that is how you create synergies. So that's why the solution likely requires multi-sectoral coordination. Okay, important point. Fine. Now let us see. See, when you read this report, when you are preparing for UPSC, you need not to devote too much time into such data, but that ability should be there, because see, once you are selected, you do training, and then when you write policy, then you have to understand these reports. So what they are saying, let's say, I will try to, let's say these are the deprivations: nutrition, child mortality, year of schooling, and these are 6 deprivations for standard of living. Fine. So what is happening when the nutrition, this means in this particular, for this much people, they are deprived in nutrition, as well as school attendance, as well as standard of living. And how many, what is the deprivation score? 67%. So that is what they mentioned, total 10 deprivation profiles. So you will not get time to write all this in mains copy, but yes, somewhere you can mention this understanding. Okay. Now let me show you. Here they talk about the wash scheme. More than 1 billion people are deprived in either sanitation or drinking water, and 437 million people are deprived in both. Right. So can you see this is a big problem. 1 billion people are deprived in sanitation or drinking water. Okay. Now see, one more point you can mention. Let's say there are 2 countries. In their poverty, let's say poverty head count ratio, maybe you can is equal, but you might need different types of policies. For instance, there he mentioned about the case of Liberia and Senegal. Both have MPI score almost equal. Let's say they mentioned MPI score for Liberia was 0.263, and for Senegal also there is some number. But anyway, what is that number is? But see, the important point is here. But the share of people deprived in both sanitation and drinking water is 39% in Liberia and 21.9% in Senegal. Can you see? You read the same MPI score, but the deprivation is different. So that is what is required. Now they are asking where the poorest of the poor people live. Now this is very important. See, reaching the last mile is very, very difficult. So the poorest of the poor people live in sub-Saharan region. You can mention, somewhere this as well. I think the condition of poorest people in sub-Saharan is not very different from the KBK area of India. KBK area, it is in Odisha. There are 3 districts: Kalahandi, Bolangir, and KBK. Kalahandi, Bolangir, and third one I am not able to recall, but you must know that region. So what is happening here? 4.1 million people are deprived in all 10 MPI indicators. Can you see? All 10. 2 of health, 2 of education, and 6 of standard of living. 4.1 million people. And where they are living? Some 3.8 million live in sub-Saharan Africa, and within Africa, 9.1 million, 0.9 million is living in Nigeria, 0.6 million is living in Niger and Ethiopia. Okay, so that is what it is. And see, one more important point. When they, as you mentioned, only 111 countries were surveyed. So they also surveyed some European and Central Asia. So there was no deprivation. So what the message it sends? It sends that even in sub-Saharan region or India, the abject poverty, the last mile, the poorest of the poor, they can be taken out. Right? Their condition can be improved. So because if it can happen in Europe, why not in India or any other country? So these are the different triplets. Can you see? I think there are total 36 triplets. So people can have different types of deprivation. cooking fuel, sanitation, assets. Okay. See, now this understanding, if not today, tomorrow you have to have this understanding. Because even in prelims question, when you, if you it is no more, some facts they are asking, but they are mainly analytical, conceptual in nature. And those concepts are built when you devote time in quality text, when you devote time in economic surveys, such reports, UNDP reports, national education policy, national health policy. Okay. Then they have discussed 3 case studies of Ethiopia and Nepal and right. In Ethiopia case they talk about here deprivation is also see what is what is the important observation in the last 1 decade. Many sub-Saharan countries and South Asian countries, they have taken millions people out of abject poverty. So this is not only limited to South Asia, but in even in Arab nations. Okay, so and in Ethiopia you run a productive safety net program, like India is running National Rural Livelihood Mission, Manrega. Okay, no need to remember this program. It is just a fact. Okay, then similarly they have done a study on Lao People's Democratic Republic. Let me see if in the case of Lao there is some important point. Okay. Now it's fine. The most common deprivation profile in Lao peoples is one where the household has at least one malnourished child. Okay, so malnourishment is a big problem in Lao. So you can understand that different countries are facing a different kind of deprivation, and I think it has more to do with the culture, right? Let's say in India, many economists say that children are stunted, but now the Indian economists are questioning that they are saying it is not they are stunted or malnourished. It is how they have evolved, right? They are getting nutrition, but somehow they are not, getting height and gaining weight. So again, that's a. But again, let's say you must know this fact. Measles is a big problem in India. In fact, measles India is called the measles capital. That has nothing to do with it has to do with culture. But again, whatever the culture, even then you can eradicate measles from India. The problem of measles in India is different from the malnutrition problem. Okay, so that thing you must understand. Okay, now here they talk about, just a minute. Okay, now what we will do, now we will see where the 1.2 billion people who are living in abject poverty, where do they live? 1.2 billion people who are in MPI, almost half of the poor people are children, and nearly 1 child live in poverty compared with 1/7 adult. So can you see, it is very difficult to eradicate poverty among children compared to adult. Okay. Then 83% people who are poor worldwide, they are living in rural areas. See, in India what is happening, as you know, now the urban growth has become the main determinant of poverty elevation. But still, more poor people are living in rural areas, and 1/3, out of 1/3 poor people are living in urban areas. So this is the big picture you must know. And that's why, see, earlier, see what is happening. When you observe slums, right? In urban slums, there is a different kind of deprivation. Okay. So, for example, they may not get quality education. But let's say somebody is poor in a school, there is free education. In urban slums, there is also free education, but they are not able to access that. It's very difficult to access free education in urban areas compared to rural. See, in rural areas, you have a village, you have a school, you can go at least, it's freedom. But in urban areas, if you are living in slums, to get access to drinking water, quality education, that is difficult. Okay. Now, they say out of the 111 countries, 26 countries experience a statistically significant reduction in deprivation. Now, what is the meaning of statistical significant? I do not want to go into that, but I will just share one thing. Let's say how these economists measure poverty? They generally they take some distribution. Let's say they measure how many people are there, and they got the mean, and then they will take the standard deviation. Fine, standard deviation is so. Let's say when you do surveys, you collect data. So there might be some inbuilt error. So when you consider for that error, and you say, when you make a statement like this, even considering this error, the people this country has reduced poverty. That means statistically significant reduction. So I do not want to go into statistics, but this is the meaning of a statistically significant reduction in poverty. Okay. Now, MPI value fell more slowly among children than among adults during the at least one period. This is a problem, right? It is difficult to eradicate poverty among children. They are also mentioning same thing. Fine. Now, let's okay. See, this point you must mention somewhere, right? In India, 415 million people exit poverty in 15 years. So this is a big achievement. See, if Indians, South Africa cannot achieve SDG 1, so world will not achieve SDG 1. So in fact, one must say SDG 1 is now only the problem of Africa and India. Right? It's no more a problem of developed countries. Fine. Now, okay, what they say in 2019-21, 16.4% of India population live in poverty, while an average intensity of 14. What is the meaning of average intensity here? We saw the graph earlier, right? There were 10 parameters. So within each parameter, what is the degree of poverty? Cumulative score of that will give you average intensity. Fine. Rural disparities are stark in Indian case. The percentage of people who are poor is 21.2% in rural areas compared to 5.5% in urban areas. Although in absolute number, poor people are less in urban areas. But remember, urban poverty is also a big phenomenon now. Fine. Among poor people, deprivation, cooking fuel, and housing the most common, followed by nutrition and sanitation. Fine. Again, same point they are emphasizing. Children are still the poorest age group. In India, see, if you are following the reports, if you read Planning Commission report, they mentioned feminization of agriculture, feminization of poverty. I think in future a term is going to come where let's say feminization, they will say poverty among children, right? This is going to be a phenomena because feminization of poverty, that is going to gradually go away because many women are adults. But this is going to be a big problem for India. Let's say in another 5 to 10 years. Fine. Okay, now when it comes to the reduction of poverty, trends in poverty reduction. So, India has brought it down from 33.6% to 21.2%. But see, that is data. But the important point is, in the poorest caste and religious groups, saw the fastest absolute reduction in poverty in the recent period. Okay. Now you want to see that, you can see this data. What is happening here? I will show you what this dimension shows. Okay, just a minute. I think yes. Now you will see. This is your MPI value for 2015-16. This is your MPI value for 2019-20. Right? So you are looking for change. So सबसे ज़्यादा change, and this is the negative. Let's say if you are reducing, if your MPI is reducing, that is a good thing, right? If the MPI is large, that is the difference. So if your MPI is reducing, and it is reducing highest in Bihar, right? Poor Bihar, UP, right? Jharkhand, and can you see states like Kerala, Delhi, Sikkim, they are good to do, right? Haryana is good to do. So these are mainly, there is a common term called Bimaru states. Fine. So this is one thing. But in relative terms, see, again, there is two things. Absolute measurement of poverty and the relative measure. So in relative terms, poorest states are not doing good. But in absolute measure, let's say there were 10 million poor people in Bihar. Out of that, 5 million have come out of the. But the overall wealth, overall prosperity, in that terms, in that parameter, poorest states are still not doing very well. Fine. Now, I think this is fine. Okay, try to see this kind of statement will be required for your essay or your mains, because they look for recommendation. See, data to आपको पता ही है, right? Data big trend. But what you are going to do? So you can write a statement like this: a policy emphasis on universal coverage. Okay, for example, education, nutrition, water, sanitation likely contribute to these results. But question remain as to how spending patterns, performance incentives, institutions, non-state actions, integrated policy packages, and local dynamics in each setting drove change. So, what you are trying to say? Okay, the policy can emphasize on all these things. And let's say you know the deprivation profile and the policy, but how the spending pattern, performance incentive, let's say if the family sends the girls to the girl child to the school, then they will get maternity benefit, something like that. Okay, or maybe Manrega wages. So how these things are linked, that is difficult to understand. So these kind of thoughts, you can, if you will write these kind of thoughts in your mains copy, I'm sure. Okay. Now they are also talking about the data revolution. Now, data revolution is happening, chat, GPT and all those things. But the data revolution in poverty measurement, that is not happening. And that is a big problem. That's why they mentioned. So what they are saying, good data and responsible data governance are essential for evidence-based policy making. Good data collection requires granularity, regularity, and comparability and transparency. So then, see, there was an organization. Okay. See, okay, yes, this was I'm talking about. UN World Data Forum in Cape Town. What happened? Yes. UN World Data Forum in Cape Town, South Africa. The global stage for innovation, partnership, and debate around the development ecosystem. It said there is need to advance household surveys. See, household surveys are not very. I do not say, see, statistician and economists put their time in that survey, but still, the data is not properly collected. Who collects the data? Mainly unemployed youth of rural and urban areas, right? So data collection is a problem. Designing of survey is fine. Let's say professors, these economists, policymakers, they will design survey. That is fine. They will put all their knowledge. But who is going to collect the data? And the youth will go and how they are going to interact. Then many errors crept into that. So that's why data revolution is also required, right? So in fact, this report makes an observation. On poverty, data collection is not so sophisticated, but about the billionaires, data is collected every hour. Can you see Forbes, list of billionaires and millionaires? Okay, now you must talk about trillionaires. Okay, so this is one thing. Now, one more thing I want to share with you. See, you can read any report. It's not necessary that you have to read this report to write a good answer. But if you are studying poverty, try to invest some time in this report. This was the Atkinson World Bank report on, let me show you, what was the name of this report? This report, you can get it from the World Bank website. Okay. This report, Monitoring Global Poverty, report of the Commission on Global Poverty. Okay, this report was led under the chairmanship of Professor Atkinson. Professor Atkinson, wonderful economist, and he led this team. And see, this report is so important. Professor Angus Deaton, even Professor S Subramaniam, Madras School of Economics, he was also on this committee, and. So many, Professor Chen, right? He's also a wonderful statistician. So what you can do, no need to read a complete report, but at least one thing you can do. Let's say what are the goals of World Bank? World Bank has mainly two goals. One is the reduction of abject poverty, And second is the shared prosperity. Even let's say if you can write even this paragraph in your somewhere in your essay, or it would be wonderful. Only this paragraph. What it says, the World Bank announced 2 overarching goals. The end of chronic extreme poverty by 2030. That is one goal. And second goal is and the promotion of shared prosperity. If you write this keyword in mains, I am sure even mains or essay, आपका 1 or 2 marks extra हो गया. Defined in the terms of economic growth of the poorest segments of the society. So how you define shared prosperity? Well, economic growth, the poorest segment. Fine. And now United Nations has also declared reduction of poverty as the primary development goal, and through SDG 1, right? So now what you do, what my suggestion is, I do not want to go into this report, but let's say you read a few paragraphs from it, and whatever notes you have, just read them and put few paragraphs or some phrases in your notes and revise it 3-4 times, and it will become part of your memory. And when you will write essay or some GS answer, you will see, professor is going to appreciate that hard work.